Right, so now that you're at the worm boss, you need to make sure you have a few items. Couple crossbow with your multi-strike chance, and it does fire damage, which is really good against this boss because it's an earth type boss. This is part of the reason why we select ranger, because you can get this weapon at level 6 and does a lot of damage, which is really good. Some sort of healing potion. You need a stone pickaxe. You should have picked up the regular healing potion from the quest that you did, so you can keep that just as a spare backup. You need to keep your copper bow still, so don't get rid of that. You need a workbench too. You need a furnace, archer station, bed, at least 3 copper ore, and some wood. Everything else you're going to turn into money. You're just going to sell it off. So make sure you make all your shards into stones, because you can sell those stones, but you can't sell the shards on their own. And everything else here you're going to sell, except for the dirt, which we'll keep. But everything else is gonna we're going to need it for cash later. In terms of your skills, you should be at least level 6 and have at least 35 dexterity. You should have crossbow expert on to deal 25% extra damage, and sentry stance, which does 50% more damage when you're not moving. Part of the reason again why we pick ranger for this specific fight is because the boss is still during our damage phase and there's no enemies around us, so we can stand still and do the extra 15% damage. I'm not going to go over the basics of how this fight works. I'm going to assume you know roughly, and there's more than enough tutorials out there to kind of explain how this encounter works. It's a very simple one, but all I'm going to demonstrate is how to position yourself in a way to do the most DPS, the most damage per second in the encounter. One thing I like to do for this boss is I like to stand where he is looking, so he constantly spits in the same direction, which reduces the time it takes for him to turn around, find me, and then spit his goo ball at me. So you always really want to move to the right hand side, because where the boss lands, you want to be as close to him as possible. So you're doing damage right on his head, which there is damage drop off, which means the further away you are, the less damage that you do to the boss. So even on ranger classes, or like mage or ranger, you still have to be as close to him as possible to get the most damage out of him. Now it is going to be a 3-phase. It's very unlikely that it will be a 2-phase. I never seem to have gotten one. So you just want to do as much damage as quick as possible, so it ends the 3 phases as quick as possible. And like I said, I always roll towards him, so it speeds up on him having to like look for me and then spit the ghoul ball at me. And then you just look for the worm tails where appropriate and try not to get hit. And that's basically the worm encounter. And for the speedrun, you have to do this twice. And we'll be collecting experience here to level up, money, and more items for us to sell. And we'll be hoping we get the cape, because we can use the extra crit damage for the rest of the run. You quit out here into the menu, which is going to essentially respawn the boss again, so we can kill him again, to give us more XP, because we need the experience level for not a lot of time. It only takes us roughly about a minute and a half to kill this boss, so gaining a level in a minute and a half is really, really useful. So we do kill this boss twice. Just pretty much using the same tactics, and you're really hoping for 2 things: the cape, so you can get the extra crit damage, and you're hoping that you get the pet, which is very unlikely, but you know, there's always wishful thinking, because it sells for a lot of gold, and that's quite useful later on in the run to have a lot of gold. So I think it sells for like 200 gold, which is quite a lot for one item. The little red thing you see underneath me is the buff working, so I've been standing still for 5 seconds. So you want to get that as soon as possible to do the extra damage. Now you can roll off the edge, so you have to be really, really careful when you get close to the edge. Don't want to get too close and fall into that where the boss is, because you will die if you fall into it. So just be really careful. So the last thing to probably mention about this boss is that it is possible for the worm that you need to hit, the worm tail, to start the DPS phase, it's possible for that not to spawn, which means you have to just like roll around for quite some time until it spawns again, and unfortunately it does mean that you just have to reset your run. Like it'll just waste way too much time, and for this to be an advantage of killing him twice, you need it to be as quick as possible. Now we're going to go and backtrack a bit to Fort Finch, because we need to buy some items. Right, and now we just need to make sure that we don't have any maggots here that could kill us. So jump up here, hopefully we'll be safe. Yep, we are. And now we're going to sell all the things we do not need. So all this, we don't need this. We do need that. That. We need this, this. We need this, we need these, and we're good. I'm going to buy 12 explosion bombs. And then everything else is on rockets. And now we move our way to Landlubber's Leap. And I will explain the reasons why we buy the explosion bombs and the rockets in future videos, because we don't need them just yet. They're for the future, but for now, just buy them.